talk shows, Find Your Own Voice, Lead from Within. With me today, Rachel G. Rachel G, please introduce yourself to our audience.
Thanks, Nomsa. Yes, I'm a self-growth coach, and I love to also speak and teach on the importance of really getting to know yourself on a deeper level and nourishing a loving and authentic relationship with one so that you can truly live your life of love. And as a result of working with me, then women will feel first, think second, and act third. They'll develop unconditional self-acceptance and manifest more joy into their life. I work especially with spiritual-minded and creative women who have been through a painful transition from a relationship or a family or a career, and are now ready to create a whole and emotionally balanced life that they love. And we do that through embracing and allowing emotions, passion, connection, purpose. So yeah, that's a little bit about me and what I do.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Rachel. So our topic today is how to stop unmet expectations from ruining your relationship. When people enter a relationship, everyone has expectations when it comes to relationship, what they expect their spouse to be and how to behave. But for me, I think I basically personally in my own basically journey when it comes to relationship, I think my expectations, I had to look at myself first before I can look at somebody else. And also, I had to remember that when it comes to life, we are all wounded and no one is perfect. And I had to learn not to demand the image from somebody else and just work on myself and work on my ingredients. When it comes to love, I've learned to work on my ingredients to make the connection last. The expectations that I have basically when it comes to men, I don't want to date a lazy man. If a man is not lazy, and if a man works really hard or they basically want to connect properly with me, those are my expectations, the good communications, respecting my boundaries, my principles, and also basically somebody entering the spirit of love and really wanting to get to know me and letting me be. And when those things are not met, basically that means or maybe the boundaries or principles, if they are violated, that means I have to basically go back to the relationship and evaluate it. But sometimes, I don't know, Rachel, whether you agree, sometimes you as a person, your relationship will become what you put in it. And that's what I realized. I've noticed so many things that I used to do. There's expectations I used to expect from my spouse, but I don't expect those things anymore because I've learned, I've grown, and the things that basically like the things that basically that we expect our spouse to be, I don't expect anybody to be. For me, basically, I expect that person to be who they want to be, and then use their common sense to bring a positive attitude and to bring to create their own values, their core values, so I don't violate them and the principles, and basically let me enter and enjoy them. And if I don't enjoy that relationship, that means that's why it's important when it comes to selection. It's very, very important to select the right person, but people change along the way. So we're gonna be exploring all those things, and you hear Rachel's opinion. We don't have to agree, and you hear my opinion. And you guys, if you are listening, please just get into the conversation and type what you think. Over to you, Rachel. What do you think about this topic, and what's your opinion on this one as a someone professional who has gone through challenges in life and discovering amazing things about yourself and love and relationship.
Yeah, expectations. This is something that you learn, I think, as you mature, and after you've had many disappointments in life. And when you start to make a link, a connection between being disappointed, being angry, getting frustrated, and understanding that it most likely had something to do with an unmet expectation. But really, it didn't. It wasn't actually what had happened to me or what I see with other people, that it wasn't something, it wasn't actually the act of what someone else has done. It was more that I had an expectation in my head about how someone should behave, that person should behave, or what they should have done. But really, it was all to do with me, not to do with them. Because really, I find, or I think you'll agree, that expectations are subjective and they're biased, and they don't necessarily match up to what another person will be thinking. And so what we can end up doing is arguing really about the smallest of things. That's what I've noticed in relationships. Expectations themselves are not wrong, but uncommunicated expectations are really what the problem is. We assume, or we predict what we think another person is how they're going to behave. We assume that we know that they know what we want. We assume that they can read our, and I was all for that. I'm actually, I can also think that I can read other people's minds sometimes. That's a lesson that I've also learned about myself. But we have this rule book with ourselves, and we expect someone to do something to make us feel, better, and that can be really toxic, because it's actually, like I said, it's not the other person's. And so we make these requests and we ask people to do things, and then when they don't actually do it, we can get upset. The choice of us getting upset about someone else is really down to us. And what I mean by that is because we can sometimes communicate what we think we want the other person to do. So, example, a silly one. Your partner, like, you're going to work, can you make sure all the dishes or whatever are all put away or cleaned up? And so what they do is I don't know, they'll put them in the dishwasher, but they don't put it on. It's a silly thing, but these are the silly things that we can sometimes get upset about. And so when we come home and we find that they didn't do what we had expected, which was that they would have put the dishwasher on, it was all finished, and they put everything away. No, they cleaned up the dishes and put it in the dishwasher, and they never did anything else. We didn't actually explain exactly what we wanted, but we had an expectation in our head of what we thought that result was going to look like. And then, of course, they don't do it, and then we get upset about it. But it's not really what they've done that we're getting upset about. We're getting upset about because of what we had in our head about what we had expected the outcome was going to be when we got home, and it didn't match it, right? So yeah, really, uncommunicated expectations are resentments that are waiting to happen. So yeah, how you can identify if you've got unmet expectations. It's ones that you're not communicating and you feel resentful.
At home here, no one washes up. I have to wash up. I find that if I buy cheap plates in the kitchen, I buy something cheap, it does last for a very long time. So I've banned them washing up. And if I buy expensive stuff, they basically, the place they break, whoever washes up, they'll be like, I'll find the place in the rubbish bin. It's broken. This is broken. So I'm like, okay, guys. So the best planning is you can help me to cook. I'm happy with you cooking and mess the kitchen up. I will come and clear up when you guys are finished. Because when they wash up, they're like throwing things, like they want to do it quickly, and they're all the same like their dad. So I'm like, okay, I have to communicate how I'm feeling. I'm like, guys, cook, and then I come and wash up. So they do that. And the other day, actually, there was one of my oven dish. I think they broke it. And then I'm like, that's my favorite oven dish. So I'm like, okay, that's it. Next time, guys, you put the meat in the oven, cook it and eat it, and just put it on the side. I'll come and sort it out when I'm ready. So those are the things, like when you say uncommunicated expectations, they cause resentment. For me, basically, I never used to be able to communicate my feelings or to communicate my want. I used to bleed inside, feelings, bleeding emotionally, not communicating things because I'll be worried that if I communicate my want, I'm gonna make the other person feel bad and do all these things. But now, whenever there is something that I need to communicate, or simply like what you were saying as well, Rachel, that we assume before we ask someone to do things for us that they are going to do it, and if they don't, we get upset. So basically, I had to work really, really hard to accept people for who they are. If I ask for something in the house, they know if I ask for something, and if no one wants to help me or no one wants to give me what I've asked for, they know that I just walk away and just leave it, because I know that if I get upset, it's not any good for me. Basically, there are no guarantees when you ask someone to do something for you. There are no guarantees that that person is going to say yes, or they might just say yes if they want to, because everyone has a choice. But I had to work really, really hard on myself to actually let people be. If I ask my spouse, can I have this? If he says no, I leave him alone, and I don't get upset or I don't do anything. Or sometimes I clean the house, and if someone leaves something on the floor, I have a choice to pick it up, or I have a choice to get upset and basically and ruin my relationship. But I've learned that, you know what, no one is perfect, so I just go along. If my spouse leaves the socks on the floor, I just pick them up and put them in the washing machine. But when I do something, like once, he will make sure I know about it. If I leave something or in the kitchen and not put things away, or once in a while, once a month, he will make sure I come and let me know, babe, do you know that you left that thing there and I had to put it away? I'm like, yes, I know. I know. So it's like basically when it comes to life, you have to, that like what you were saying, that we basically ask people to do the things that we want, and then we have these bigger expectations, or what people should behave, what people should act, how they should act. But at the end of the day, for me, basically, I spend time working on myself. And I realize that when I spend time working on myself, the energy that I put myself, my attitude, it will help me to build a relationship with that person, and also communicating my want. Like you were saying, we assume that people know what we want. We want them to be psychic. We want them to guess our desires. We want them to, basically, we have this thing where he should know what I want, he should know. I'm like, no, he shouldn't, because he hasn't got a clue. So I'm like, he shouldn't. When my friends say my husband should know, I'm like, no, he shouldn't, because he doesn't know. And they're like, we've been married for a long time. I'm like, every single day is a learning progress when it comes to relationship. We learn about each other every single day. And sometimes they might forget your wedding anniversary. And when somebody forgets their wedding anniversary, they get angry. But life, and what I've realized, life is like most life. We are always on the go, the mind. We don't give our minds to rest. For me, basically, I have a phone. A phone reminds me. I can't forget the day, my anniversary, the day I met my spouse, or we celebrated this, whatever. I can't forget that. but people's birthday or everything is always on my phone. I put it on my diary, I put it on my phone, and I find that those we're talking with my daughter the other day, and she was like, "Oh, I forgot my dad's birthday 2 years ago during lockdown," and 3 days she remembered 3 days later. But that was normal to her. She says, since then, I have to make sure that I remember. But sometimes the people intend, they're not doing things because they want to, they forget things, or sometimes the people they do things, or sometimes some people don't know how to communicate. So that's why it's important to have a therapist. I've always say to people, is important having a third person in your relationship. It's not that you can't manage. It's not that basically that person is interfering. It's just to remind you guys, like to push you that don't get comfortable. Because when you get comfortable, that's when, you know, like Rachel, let's say when you met your spouse, do you know how it was like? The perfumes that you used to do, and your hairstyle, how you used to make sure that when they meet you, they're like, wow, Rachel, you're looking good, girl. So all those things, when we meet, when we get into a relationship, we relax. We no longer care. And even also when you meet someone, you try your best to get to know them, to really ask the right questions. But then that's when they're like, this is amazing person. This person, they're interested in me. And that's what a relationship is about, basically. We shouldn't stop doing all those things. I don't know. What do you think?
No, I totally agree. I mean, what you were saying about, that your spouse can't meet all your needs and all your expectations. I mean, that plus the mind reading that I talked about, they're very big ones actually. A lot of people have that belief that when they get into it, they should meet all their needs, or they think that the other person, like you said, is psychic and knows exactly what it is that they want. And that is all linked actually back to our childhood. Because as children, caregivers, our parents, well, they did have to, all our needs. We did rely on them to give us what it was that we needed. And even when we were younger, if we were crying because we didn't know how to communicate what it was that, our parents had to decipher, okay, try and work out, what is it? Is it because of the wet nappy? Is it because they're hungry? Is it because they're not feeling very well and they got pain, et cetera, et cetera. So it stems from childhood, but then, there comes a moment when we grow up, we mature, we become adults, and we have to actually take that responsibility on ourselves, which is why it's so important to actually know who you are and to have a relationship with yourself, so that you know what you need, you know what you want. And like you said, we can then communicate that to our respective partners. We have a standard that we know what we want and what we will accept and what we won't accept. And when we can share that with our partner, have a better understanding of, what it is that we need. And like you said, that's like getting very clear on our boundaries. But there is also that other belief around the fact that we think that another relationship is what will complete us. And we have to come to that understanding that no, another person doesn't complete us. We're whole in our own right. Therefore, we don't need to expect people to do things for us to feel whole, if you get what I'm trying to say there. And I think another belief people hold around expectations, that if there is any form of conflict, because they're going to share something that is an expectation and is a standard, that the other person isn't going to like it, and it's going to then cause some conflict, that means that their relationship is not healthy, and so they will actually avoid it. And so that in itself can then the expectation of, well, I can't communicate what I need because it could cause a problem, so therefore I'll keep quiet, is something I see really quite often also when I'm working with my different clients. So they're kind of like the big four, in my opinion, when it comes to unrealistic expectations that we hold. And then on those daily ones, yeah, I mean, what you were saying, just the everyday things that we do and get into. We think that our partners need to resolve all our problems. We think that they need to agree with us. If we say something, that they should, like, oh yes, you're right. Or every time we're free, we want our partners to spend all our time with us. That's very much a very codependent kind of relationship with someone. And they're all a different vision. And also, like, maybe that we want to change our partners. We expect them to be somebody else. And like you said, it's about acceptance. We have to understand that in every relationship, whichever part, when you're having a new partner, they will come with many experiences, with new perspectives, and they're going to have their own values. And those values that they come into in the beginning of the relationship, if you're in like 5 years, 10 years, 15 years down the line, those values, their perspective on life, they will change, because, like, we evolve, we grow, hopefully, in the relationship. So you have to constantly be in curious with your partner questions, because by asking those questions, you're going to grow and with each other. Know that it's okay to have a set of standards and the expectation, but it's only going to work if you actually explain that and communicate that with your other better half or other half. And own your own feelings when anything happens. No, don't project it onto the other person, is also something that I think is really important, so that we don't allow expectations to ruin our relationships. Because having an expectation, it's kind of like forming an opinion, right, about somebody, and putting them into a box and labeling them. And then what you're doing then is actually, you're not nurturing the relationship anymore. You've given it a stigma. They do, this is who they are. Well, no, they're not. That's not who they are, just because they might not have done something as you expected. That's kind of unfair. And it's, like I said, it's not really nurturing the relationship. It's you're going to then start to cause an emotional distance between the pair of you, right? What do you think?
That is so true. I like it when they say sometimes things is things that we've learned from back to our childhood attachment. And I remember, when I was growing up with my dad, I've always been a daddy's girl. And I always spent time, I was both sides actually, my mom and my dad. And I was used to, like, my family will communicate with me if there is something, or if I make a mistake, or if there is something that I don't understand. I'm used to just being free and going and sit down with my family and just sit down and ask questions. Or sometimes I remember, like, I wanted to understand how relationship work, why my dad divorced and why my mom divorced, both of them divorced. So I remember going to ask my dad, and I'm like, why did you divorce my mom and what went wrong? And he basically didn't push me away, sit down and explain that when you're older, you will understand that basically we got married when we were young, and we both wanted different things. Your mom wanted to go back to school. I was just finishing uni, and I needed a woman to look after my kids at home, and your mom wasn't going to be a housewife. She wanted to go back to school. So at the time, I thought it was the wrong idea, but things would have been okay. So he was explaining their opinions and things like that. And I went to my mom and I explained. And my mom, she was like, your dad is telling porcupines he was never ready to settle down and things like that. So I'm used to like talking to my family and being free. And when I enter a relationship, and if I'm trying to communicate with someone, it really, really affected my relationship with men, because I'm not used to basically shutting down. I'm used to when something that I don't understand, or I'm used to communicating with people, and I'm not used to somebody telling me off as well. And that when a man comes to me and telling me off, I'm like, whoa, whoa, whoa. I'm not used to that lifestyle. I don't get told off. I get explained to things when I've done things wrong. It gets explained to me. This is what you've done, and these are the consequences. So when somebody lose the plot and they're like, like when the men sometimes they talk to you and they're like, you should know better and things. I'm like, whoa, whoa, whoa. I shouldn't have known better. I'm not perfect. So all those things affected me. So I had to go back and work on myself with a psychologist and just trying to understand that people are different, how I was raised, and the men that I'm going to meet, they're all going to be different from my dad. And because my stepdad was the same as well, he was a man that he was my father. I go and sit down with him and stuff. And if I want something, I say I want shopping. You explain to me that you don't get things for free. What are you willing to do to go shopping? I'm like, give me work. So he give me work, and see, you express what he need and the importance of being independent. And so I expected that when I'm entering a relationship, I expected the communications to be wonderful, to be all this about what I didn't realize that people are different. I'm gonna have to create my own, like what you were saying. I didn't realize that now I'm now older, and I need to create my own life. I need to create how I'm gonna my values and my beliefs. So I got it when I started working with a psychologist, and when I took my psychology degree as well, it helped me a lot to understand that people are different. And also you were saying that uh, when we enter a relationship, we want to change people. I think for me, basically, this is what I wanted to do unknowingly, wanting people to be like my father, wanting a man to be like my dad. But in reality, it does not work like that. So it was then when I had the awareness, the knowledge, like, no, he cannot be like my father. He has to be himself. All I need to do is understand, like what you were talking about, core values and beliefs. I need to understand his values, his beliefs, and why he believes the things that he believes. Then I need to understand basically the things that he loves to do, what makes him love the things that he loves to do, and just get to know the person and leave my father out of it. Leave my father's character and both of them out of it. So those are the things that I didn't know. And I'll be like, he should know better. He should not be treating me like this. And also, and communicating my needs as well is something as I go older, something that I basically I struggled with. Like if we were going out, like maybe get invited for family dinners, if I didn't feel like wanting to go, I'll just agree and say yes. But deep down inside, I want to go to sleep. I'm tired. I can't just come from work. Instead of communicating the simple things that will make things very easy, I find it hard. But now, like on Saturday, they were going to big family dinner with a family, and I was like, I had a choir practice, and I was like, guys, I'll join you guys later. I'm gonna go choir practice. When I'm finished, I'll come and join you. And I did go and have fun at choir practice. And when I finished, and they were like trying to convince me to come with them. They were like, but you go to choir every weekend. Do you think you can compromise? Or like, no negotiations. I was like, no, I like when I say I'm gonna make a commitment, I'm going to make a commitment. So I'll meet you guys. And I finished choir. Choir is only 2.5 hour practice, and I got to meet them at 5, after 5, and we stayed there till midnight. And so we were having fun, everybody's happy. But before, I'll basically compromise choir and say, I can't go, I have to come with you. But I don't have to do that. I didn't have to do all those things. It's just doing things that makes you happy, and not expecting people to become what you want. The image that we have in our head. I used to have an image what a man should, how a man should behave, should treat me, and how they should look after me. But unfortunately, 2009, from 2009, everything changed. When you work on yourself, basically, you start realizing that those things don't exist. And, I was a woman that when my relationship fell apart in 2009, and I sat down, I was like, things are going to change. And I was like, how am I going to change how I've been leading my life? I had to, instead of blaming my ex, I had to be honest with myself. I was like, there must be something that I'm doing that is wrong, and without even blaming myself. So I was like, I need to learn more. So that's why I went to a GP, basically walked in and I was like, can you refer me to a psychology, a good person that you know? And I was like, what happened? So I was like, I can't tell you. I'm going through divorce, but it seems like I've been hitting my head. I don't think properly. I don't know what's going on. And he was like, oh, you have a shock. I was standing instead of sitting down. Normally you speak to your GP sitting down. And he was like, do you want to sit down? And I was like, yeah. And he was like, we have a shock. We haven't. I was like, yes. Poor the guy, he was really nice. He made the arrangements straight away, and the woman that called me, and we just made an arrangement, and then we started learning. He started teaching me things, and it was like, we just need to focus on you right now. So I had to focus on myself instead of blaming my ex and stuff, and just finding out the expectations, the things that I thought I expected to someone. And then I realized that I needed to work on myself. And basically, I was a woman that would step outside and making sure that I didn't step in the mud, protecting my body, and not knowing, neglecting my inside, my inner being, until I realized what's on the inside of me is greater than what's on the outside. So I had to I had to do some work. So I'm sure you've done some work, Rachel, as well.
Yeah, I mean, as you was talking, I was thinking that, it's interesting how before you do a lot of work on yourself, you have,
Yeah,
I believe, more expectations of other people, but also expectations of what you are thinking that you think another person wants from you. And
yeah,
it's only until you start to get to really know yourself and understand yourself that the expectations start to become less and less. You expect less from people because you see them as an individual, and you will respond to whatever is happening in that moment and respect that they aren't you. I'm thinking about, like, with my mum. My mum is somebody who back to the UK to see, and so she's always on the ball. And then it's like, okay, so what are you doing? Where are you going? Who are you going to be? Where are you going to stay? And all these questions firing at me, and she wants an answer. Right? And so I know that is that her expectation is that she wants an answer. Why do I? It's not that I'm mind reading. I know that she wants that because she'll come back and go, and have you thought about it? So she'd me up. Now, in the past, I would get myself a little bit stressed and think, oh, I've got to answer. And I would give an answer, but hadn't really thought of it and decided, well, is that what I want? And then when I've got to know myself better, I know now that I'm somebody who needs time to digest. I need time to think about what has been proposed to me, and I need it to just sink in, because I need to feel the answer. I can't think of an answer, but the answer, if I think about it only and I cut my emotion out, let's say it can be 50% of the time, I'll have to come back on it because it doesn't feel right later on. So then I want to change my mind. And I've learned that about myself, whereas in the past, before knowing and understanding that about myself, I would give all my answers because I would feel stressed that, okay, that's what they want. And then maybe later on, I would have to then, oh, but I'm changing my mind now. I don't want that. I want, I want this or I want that. And then people would get upset because they were like, well, we've made plans. And then so, okay, well, I won't. So it was this constant stress and feeling that people didn't understand me because I didn't understand myself. It made sense when I started to work on myself. So now, I will say to my mum, I need time to think about this. And when I'm ready, I'll get back to you. So I found my voice and I can now explain. And then I've had a one-on, I've spoken with her and I've said, when you ask me things, Mum, if I don't give answer straight away, it's not because I'm ignoring you. It's not because I don't want to answer you. It's because I need time to think about it. And I will come back on my time, on my terms, and I'll give you an answer. And so it's cut out a lot of stress. It's cut out a lot of backwards and forwards, unnecessary communication where my mum's getting irritated because she's thinking, what's going on? Why is she not answering me? And I'm, that's just, she just knows. She asked me the question and she just leaves it. And she knows that, well, Rachel will respond as and when she's ready. It's just clear. And that's really, I've worked on myself. Did that clarity come in?
Yeah, I love that, Rachel. When you talk about clarity, it's very, very important basically to look at ourselves, and before we can expect other people to understand us. Like when you were saying that you used to think that people didn't understand you, and but in the end you realize that actually it's you who didn't understand yourself, because when you do understand yourself, you'll be able to communicate what you want and basically show people, this is me, this is who I want to be treated, and show up as you are, unapologetic. And but sometimes people, they don't like a confrontation. People will be like, I don't want to do this, I don't want to upset anyone. And for me, basically, it's something that I've learned the hard way, that I need to show people, this is who I am, this is what I want, this is my desires. And if I'm ready, like what you were saying, if someone says let's do this, if you say I'm not ready and you're not ready, you're not ready, honestly. And I've seen it when it comes to relationship, like sometimes you have communications with people and they'll be like, I don't want to do this because I don't want to upset my husband, or I don't want to do this, I don't want to upset my my wife. But I'm thinking, but relationship, it should be, you should feel that freedom in your relationship when you're dating someone, and you shouldn't feel that I shouldn't do this because I don't want to upset anyone. I'm like, come and visit my house. If you have expectations, even my kids are in the club of saying no. If you have these expectations where you say let's do this and as a family, and if it does not make sense and they don't like it, they are not afraid to say no, thank you. If you come up with the ideas that they don't like it, it's a no, thank you. If anyone gets excited, that means it's a wonderful idea and they do want to do it. So I'm like, if you come to my house and if you are like that, I don't want to upset anyone, you will be upset every single day. Because even with food, I have to ask it, what do you guys want to eat? If all of them, they're like, I don't mind. If I get, I don't mind, I don't mind, I come up with my own ideas. But if there is something that they really, really want, they'll be like, oh, we need pasta today, or rice, please, today. Or they communicate. So I always ask them, and if I don't get the answer that they want, they know that it will be the choice that I'll go and just see what is there for them to eat. So it's very, very important to actually work on yourself, and also when you work on yourself, communicate it to people so that they know. And unfortunately, in this world where we live in, people don't like to be people. I've seen it with my family, like sometimes people want to change, want me to do things based on their expectations. But for me, I don't do things like that. Even my mom that raised me and my dad, they basically raised me to become the person that I want to become. And I'm like, I'm not going to change now just because I want to please anyone. So I don't do those things like pleasing people and doing things for me to please people. I just work around people, making sure that I don't upset anyone and just be there for them. It's very, very important to be there for someone and to understand how they want to be treated. And that one, I communicate and ask questions. How do you want me to treat you? And as long as you communicate how you want to be treated, I'm happy to do that. It's not. I've just realized it's important that before you can look at somebody else, look at your image and look at your want, your desires, and then you communicate it to people, because it is very, very important to understand your own principles. I don't call them rules, because if I call them rules, it means they cannot be changed. So I say to myself, if God says in his kingdom, you have to be this, you have to be this. So in my life, if someone enters my life, there are things that I can tolerate, but there are things that I can't tolerate. If those things are really, really violated, they're not rules, they're principles. And this is my principles. You come to my life, you're gonna experience unconditional love, you're gonna experience your freedom, you're gonna experience so many things, that the love that I'll give you, and I'll be there for you. And but if you violate and take me for granted, and I'm out. So those are the things that I put in place when it comes to a relationship, that I'm there for you. I'll love you unconditional. I'll love you even when you're sick, when you are this, I'll be there for you. But when I'm being taken for granted, I'm just out. So I don't know how you feel about your, do you have principles in this place, Rachel, or how do you basically, when it comes to relationship, like how does it work with you? The audience will be really interested so that they can create their own things.
Yeah, it's a process that I'm currently actually navigating more, because I'm in a process where my relationship is breaking up, and so there's a lot of reassessing going on, and understanding why the relationship is breaking up. What was it about the relationship that didn't meet my value system, that has changed over the 10-11 year period. In the beginning, obviously, we came together and we met because our beliefs and our values were not perfectly matched, but they did have, what's the word? They did complement each other. But as I changed and I started to know myself more, my values have changed. My understanding of what it is that I want out of life has changed. And so what I want out of a partner is also changed. And sometimes, it's okay if you can't come together because the other person's values, beliefs, and what they want out of life is now no longer matching yours. So it's okay at that point to say, okay, we're separating. It's hard. And for some, for one party, maybe it's more difficult than the other to come to that level of acceptance that it's moving on. But to go back to your question, like, what do I think for me, moving in Not that I'm now like, oh, I need to go and get another relationship, not at the moment, but let's just, project into the future that I might meet a new person. I think that it's prioritizing the love that you have for that person over and above the expectations. So expressing more compassion for people and understanding that everybody has a backstory, and seeing them as the individual that they are, and valuing my relationship over and above what relationship rules, in inverted commas, that I may or may not consciously, unconsciously be projecting into the relationship. And you call them principles. For me, that principles and standards that are linked to like beliefs, but then you have that next layer down, which I'm talking about when I talk about rules, that can be from silly little rules like, please don't leave your socks by the bed, pick them up, put them in the dirty bin or whatever. They are like, that is a rule that somebody, is going into a, really, is that more important than the individual and the person, who they are and what they can bring to you, and all the good things. So I think reminding myself to keep refocusing on appreciating the things that person does right in my eyes, the things that they do well, the things that please me, the things that face, rather than always only focusing on the things that I think, well, he could have done that better, or, well, that wasn't really what I wanted. Well, when he said he was going to take me out for dinner, I thought it was going to be this, and we ended up in a cafe, for example, and it was not really what I was hoping. It's, well, look at the fact that it was the thought, it was the gesture, it was that they were spontaneous to come with that idea. Look at that. Look at the intention behind, the positive intention that they were trying to bring into the relationship. So I think, off the top of my head, those are just some of the things that I know going into a new relationship I want to take with me. I know that that's going to be important, and I think the only reason that I can do that is because that's how actually I apply it to. So I've refocused now with myself that I look at what are the things that I'm doing well, rather than what are the things I've done wrong or the mistakes that I've made. I prioritize loving myself rather than putting shoulds and woulds and things on top of myself, not having any compassion for myself. And I do value the things that I do in life and what I can bring to other people and how I can help other people, over and above the things that my ego sometimes can tell me that I should be doing what, and making these little rules up for me. So again, how I have the relationship with myself, because that has changed, then how I'm going to treat a new relationship will also reflect that. It will, I'll be able to bring that into a relationship.
I actually love it when you say, basically, when you put rules for the socks, you shouldn't do this, you shouldn't do this, instead of looking at the important things. That's why I don't have rules for myself. If people, like, if my spouse leave his socks or leave it on the floor, I know that, okay, though I'm picking up his socks, he is picking up something. There's times where he will pick up something that I've left behind. So although he's gonna come and let me know about it, oh baby, I had to put that away for you, and if you need it, is in that place. So I'm like, oh, thank you. So it is very, very important to actually show basically understand, like what you were saying, that in everyone's life there is a story behind them. So it's nice to understand their story and trying to find out what's the story behind that person, and if there is a painful story, and instead of wanting your spouse to deal with that story and wound them with your story, sometimes it's important to work on your healing yourself, because the healing is a process that, if you have gone through painful stories, you have to go through it on your own within, although you have people that are supporting you, but it's just you that will have to go through it, going through healing. So there are some people that they don't go through healing. If you are somebody who is watching and you have a story behind in your relationship that is affecting your relationship, there are coaches out there who can help you to break away from that story, and also to not to be ashamed. Some people, they feel ashamed of, let's say, if they been in a relationship, in an abusive relationship in the past, or they've been in a relationship where things didn't work out because of their childhood, they feel ashamed. Don't feel ashamed. We all have to go through something. We all have gone through something. If it's not abuse, it means there is something we've gone through it in life. So don't feel ashamed to remove the chains that are in your life. Get help. And if you feel that I have expectations in a relationship, find out why those expectations are affecting your life, and get help so you can complement your life. We all deserve happiness, and happiness, when happiness is found within, you will never be disappointed, because we expect people to give us that happiness, but actually we have to, like Rachel was saying, that happiness comes from within. And I met this woman once. I was in a business event, and she says to me, "What do you do for work?" And I was like, "I'm a matchmaker." And she was like, "Oh, okay. So are you married?" And I was like, "No, I'm not married." But I didn't say, because she didn't ask me that, "Do you live with your spouse, your partners?" She asked me if I was married. I said no. I answered her question. She said, "You can't match me then if you're married." So I was like, it depends with the knowledge that I know, what I know, because you might be married for 20 years, and you've been in that relationship for the sake of the children, or for the sake of you being in a relationship, and you're unhappy. So it depends with what you basically you basically, what we define as you can't match me. I was like, I am in a relationship, but if I was to get married today, the difference between me and somebody who is married is because we have not signed. I have not signed the certificate, they have. So I was like, if you were to put me in a same room with somebody who is married, I'm sure there will be some things that they will have to work on their relationship, and there will be some things that I'll have to learn from them as well. So I was like, I don't see a point why I can't match you. If I had worked on myself and understanding, having the knowledge of how relationship work, and I was like, and also being in a relationship is a choice, or I might be choosing to be single, so I don't have to be married to be a matchmaker. So I was like, I've gone through pain in my life when it comes to relationship. I've gone through where the times where I had to evaluate my life. I had to define what does love mean. So now I do understand when somebody says, "Nomsa, I love you," and if they don't love themselves, they don't have authority, or they don't have the right to tell me that they love me if they don't love themselves. So I was like, you have to love yourself first in order to declare that love to me. Because if you are declaring love to me and you don't love yourself enough, that means it's a lie. So she was like, "I'm sorry, I didn't." I was like, so then I had to explain to her. I said to her, when it comes to relationship, it gets complicated. And I was like, even the people that have been married for a long time, one minute you might be everything okay, people change. So I was like explaining to her that people change, and one day you might think that everything is okay, I'm happy, and this, and then one day someone comes to you and say, I want a divorce. And I was like, that's how life is. You never know what the other person are thinking, and until you can be God and get into their mind. I was like, love is a thing that we don't have control. We have control each day because we grow and we live with that person, but we actually don't know what they're thinking. Like you were saying, that you have grown, your values are changing because you are starting to get to know who Rachel, you now know who Rachel is and what Rachel wants, what Rachel does not want, what you can tolerate, what you don't want to tolerate. So all those things, when you start working on yourself, they change, you grow. And when you do grow, basically there's a chance that if that person is not working with you to a personal development, there's a chance that the relationship will break. So and I like it when you talk about your priorities as well. You have to prioritize in that relationship as well. I think it is very, very important, and complement each other as well. And you spoke about removing the stress. There are things that we put stress on ourselves that are not necessary. So it is very, very important to actually know what's important to us and the things that we take for granted when it comes to life, and just maybe get mad on the things that matters in life, or maybe sickness, and go get mad in prayers, get mad in meditation instead of getting mad in people. So it's nice to, I basically spend time in prayer and spend time in meditation because I know that it helps me a lot instead of spending time uh, arguing with someone why they left the socks on the floor. It's not worth it. So it's
Exactly.
not really worth my time. I rather spend time in the fridge looking for ice cream instead of wondering why did they leave the socks. I don't do that anymore. But it's
Yeah.
something that I used to think that was important, but it's not. To
Yeah,
me,
I mean,
it's not.
I, I mean, if someone is out there, I still get annoyed with my husband, my husband or my partner who leaves their socks on the floor and I'm picking it up every day or whatever. It's to ask yourself, why is it so important? Dig deeper as to, because that's just a surface level thing. But keep asking, well, a why question. Why is it so important? And whatever the answer is to that, well, why is that, whatever the answer to that is, then do a why, like the 5 why questions. Try to go beneath the surface and look at what is that leading to you to, because it will go back to something. It could be that it's link to control. And why do you need to feel that you're in control? Well, because then you feel safe. It's like, well, why don't you feel safe? It's getting to know why the surface level things are showing up in your life. And your partners that you meet, they're just going to mirror to you exactly what it is that you need to learn about yourself. And like I said at the very beginning, we think that what we're missing, or the things that we think that we haven't got, our partner's going to be able to give them, and then we feel this complete, when in actual fact that partner isn't going to be able to give you what you need within you to feel whole. You have to give that to yourself. So things like socks and dishes and, why did you, I don't know, why X, Y, or Z, and you're arguing over those petty little things. Really, there's something a lot deeper going on beneath the surface that you have been unwilling to acknowledge and accept about yourself, right?
Yeah, that is so true. That is so true. You know, life is it's a journey. We discover things as we walk along the way when it comes to relationship, and there are things that are important. And I've learned that the hard way, that there are things that, you know, when God gives you a beautiful man, or when God gives you a beautiful woman, we take each other for granted. But when all that goes, and that's when we start looking back and having regrets, or sometimes we choose the wrong people. Deep down in our heart, when that relationship begins, we know that this person is wrong. Basically, everything is wrong, but we hope that things will change. We hope that they're gonna wake up in the morning and be the image that we have created in our head. So it's just having an understanding of the things that you want. There's some people, they write their vision, they have these things. This is the kind of a woman that I think I'll get along with, or this is the kind of man that I want. And then when they do, when it comes to selection, they forget all about their needs, and they forget about the long term, because a relationship is not something that is going to last for 2 days or 3 days. It's a long term thing. And when you say I do to someone, yes, I do. Marrying that person, you've got to know that this is the right person. Even if they change, you can look back and say, you know what? I do not regret marrying this person, even though the relationship has ended, but I had my time. So I think it's very important. Any words of encouragement, Rachel, before we leave?
I would say that if you want to, if there is the one that the expectations, as we're talking about expectations, that I think are good to have, are around your values, not about somebody's behavior, about how they're showing up, or have in mind, what are my values? You know, if it's trust, if it's communion, if it's friendship, it's empathy, it's kindness, having and respecting, quality time with each other. If those values you can expect, and if you know them, they're really I think the foundation that can help to build a healthy relationship. But any expectation outside of that, where you're projecting it onto somebody else about how they're going to do something based on what your images in your head, that you've put together, and think that that's what you want, and you haven't communicated it. Those expectations, let them go. Just let them go, and just focus on realistic expectations, and link to your values, I think, is my one piece of advice that I'll leave with this talk. Yeah. You're silent.
For me, basically, is like what Rachel is saying is, if you have expectations, this picture and this movie that you have in your head that I used to have, that a man should be like this. Uh, Same thing like what Rachel is saying. Basically, you need to evaluate your life and work on yourself. That means you need some work. And also, a beautiful love, when happiness, like I said before, when happiness is found within, you won't be disappointed. Basically, I was a woman who I used to spend 2 hours getting dressed. When I'm going out, I'll spend 2 hours in the bathroom, making sure my eyelashes matched my hair, my handbag, my shoes, everything. And I did no personal development. And when I step outside, my neighbors will be like, wow, she is looking good. But now, honestly, I spend 45 minutes getting dressed. That the rest of the hours I put them on my personal development. I wake up at 5 or 5:30 or sometimes at 4. And by the time I reach 8 o'clock, I've prayed, I've meditated, I've done everything, my journal and everything. And I'm up. And in the afternoon, on my TV time or evening, I listen to motivational audios, anything that can help me become a better person for me, not for anybody else.
Yeah.
So that's what I do. So, and because life, it can be very, very challenging if you don't have a knowledge of the things that you want to do. So that's what I do. So if you want to find your own voice and lead from within, please get in touch with us at Ngozi Talk Shows. Follow Rachel on her social media. Everything is attached to the video. Just follow us on social media and get in touch with us. Live with grace, everyone, and God bless. We are here at Ngozi Talk Shows Monday to Friday, 1 p.m. UK time. And YouTube subscribers, please subscribe to our channel. God bless.